Okay, hello and welcome for the semi-finals of the Gentry Invitational, which took place in December. We invited 8 players for a little get-together to showcase some of the Gentry matches that you might see in the upcoming weeks, as we have a Gentry trial on the 22nd and the Gentry Open on the 29th of January 2023 happening. We're going to be watching Alan face off against Arthur. Alan is playing his black and white reanimate / card advantage / mid-range deck. So it uses cards that draw him extra cards, like the Spirited Companion, Inspiring Overseer, and Phyrexian Rager, together with Phyrexian Missionary to bring it back, recommissions, Hero of the Dunes, and couples that with a Elazin core just to get a little bit more advantage from creatures on his side dying. He has that Right of Oblivion, which gives him a lot of flexibility in interacting with the board for his opponent, interacting with his opponent's board. And Disfigure to stop tempo decks a little bit. It quite heavily relies on its rares as finishers, and since he can bring things back with the Phyrexian Missionary, it's more interesting for him to have some creature-based rares, yet still chose for the Wandering Emperor, as it is such a strong card in Gentry right now. Now, facing off against him is Arthur Hugaard with his mono-blue tempo deck, uses Delver of Secrets and Tolarian Terror as finishers. The rest of the deck is pretty much just protection, permission, and draw spells to get to where he wants to be. In the sideboard, he has more protection, more permission, and some extra random graveyard effects. For Alan, we have the very traditional sideboard with Duress, extra disenchant effects, Eaten Alive as an extra interactive spell, which works really well with his deck, so well that it's surprising not to see it in the main board. And then Emergency Weld as an extra reanimation system, and Overwhelming Remorse as a catch-all answer for him to have. So let's get rid of this, get rid of that, and let's get into the match. We see Arthur on the right, Alan on the left, and I do believe that Alan... is Alan taking a mulligan? Let's see if a card goes to the bottom. No, we are. Well, apparently we're not starting. So both players starting on 7 cards, and we have Delver of Secrets for Arthur, just as he would have planned it. Oh, my microphone is doing funky stuff. Let's put it a bit closer. We have Fetchland for Alan, and a revealed spell for Arthur, flipping that Delver of Secrets for free. Always nice if you can be in that position. And it's up to Alan to show interaction here. He has the main deck Disfigures, so he can interact here, but we already know that the protection spell is in Arthur's hand. Spirited Companion. Funny thing about Arthur's deck is that some of his interaction is bounce based, and that's of course not what you want to be doing against a deck like Arthur's. Alan pretty much just trying to rush removal here. Haughty Djinn, so a 0/4 flying. Makes instants and sorceries 1 less to cast, but that isn't so relevant at this point. Right of Oblivion takes care of the Djinn, but we still need to find an answer for this insectile aberration. Oh, my webcam seems to have moved a little bit, so let's get that back to blocking off what I wanted to block off. There we go, that looks better. Phyrexian Rager for Alan keeps drawing deeper. Doesn't change the clock here at all. I was about to say that it cut him off because I thought he'd already reduced it, but going from 12 to 11 is the same 4 turns. And we have the first disfigure from Alan. We have a lot of bounce spells. It looks like Make Disappear as well in hand for Arthur, but this is his turn, so this might be Alan setting up some interacting in his turn. If he has the Emperor, think that could be an answer for this insectile aberration. Has a second Rite of Oblivion there, I see. Not sure what else is hiding in his hand. 2 mana. 4. Spirited Companion. Draws another card. Another land. It has double Rite of Oblivion in hand there. And looks like we'll have to mute the telephone again. This is a fixed feature these days at coverage. Me forgetting to put the phone out. And he plays the Missionary without Kicker, which the Phyrexian Missionary. So it is a 2/3 lifelink, which means that that clock has been quite elongated for Alan. Correct. Very sensibly identifying that he just needs time here with the amount of cards and interaction he has in hand. We have a lot of bounce power in the hands of Arthur, so he might choose to address the Missionary that way. There's also 2 Tolarian Terrors in Arthur's hands. Ilazilkor is a life gain engine for Alan. So we have the bounce on the Phyrexian, the emissary. that's the word I was looking. The Fading Hope to get rid of the emissary and making sure that there's no life gain for Alan, as Arthur is setting up to just finish the game in 2 swings with that insectile aberration. But we have life gain triggers for Alan at this point. Arthur bounces again here, but replaying the Missionary will already put Alan at the life total that's 1 above the clock speed. So the life gain is becoming relevant here. We have Tolarian Terrors that have started to come into play. I think we have an Impulse, a Tolarian Terror in hand for Arthur, and a 3rd card that I can't identify. As Arthur goes double up on the Tolarian Terrors. Alan's back is quite firmly against the wall here. Needs to find a lot of answers very quickly. That Ward 2 will make it very hard for him to answer the Tolarian Terrors. On the other hand, Arthur is tapped out, so he has a window here to interact. Chooses to exile the insectile aberration. And is now in the tank. He has malicious malfunction. Yes, he has 2 blockers, but he needs more here. So this is not a board state that he can survive. He could play missionary with kicker, bring something back and triple block, but that doesn't let him survive. So he needs to, pay for another rights, pays for the ward, and has a chump blocker available. So any bounce spell from Arthur seals the deal here. Looks like he has land essence scatter or a land negate, and a third card which I thought was impulse, but I think it's something else. We have a block, a very forced interaction here. Ah, yes, of course, the Illas and Cora has Death Touch. I forgot for a second here. I thought Alan was in way worse shape than he actually is. So another Illas Ilkor, a Phyrexian Rager, Negator, Phyrexian something, Rager, yeah. As Alan looks to have stabilized and is now going on the offensive. He missed one. No, he didn't miss a trigger. Those Rites of Oblivions, they do flashback, by the way. So he has 3 more exile spells ready in his graveyard as he starts showcasing what his deck is capable of, stabilizing really late and rebuilding like nobody's business. Spirited Companion to draw another card. Keeping the Illas Ilkor back here. Interesting. I think he might have forgotten that it has that touch. Tolarian Terror, not so terrible here. Don't feel like Alan is particularly scared of another Tolarian Terror on this board. It does set him back pressure-wise, because it becomes pretty hard for him to attack into it. But I do see another Phyrexian Missionary there. Ooh, 5 mana for a Hero of the Dunes. That's gonna bring back a Rager or a Companion? A Companion. Rather have his life total go up a notch. That also gives 1 extra power to all of his creatures and a Inspiring Overseer. So the Pocket Army mega deployed here for Alan. He drew another Hero of the Dunes. The first time I saw this card, Hero of the Dunes, I actually thought it was a rare. The fact that it isn't is such a crazy thing for this deck. It really fleshed out the last bit on the top of the curve for Alan's deck. As Alan is now just swinging for the fences. Goes for a block on the Missionary. So that's 4. That's 10 damage coming through, putting him at 1. I think Alan might regret not attacking with an extra creature or 2 here. And Arthur scoops him up, knowing there's nothing for him to do in this match anymore. Alan really clawing a game back from the hands of defeat. And showing what he's boarding in here, apparently. That's a lot of respect for your opponent. So let's fast forward and get straight into the gameplay. I think we are about there. There we go. So Arthur on the play again. Had the dream start pretty much with a Delver that flipped on the first turn. has a more interactive hand here. Make disappear, spell pierce, negate and impulses. Chooses to spell pierce the first duress. Not showing what he has here. I believe that is a new art syncopate. Not 100% sure. As Alan fires a second duress, which gets negated. This is actually a sequence that allows Arthur to build up towards Tolarian Terror. So even though it may seem like nothing is really happening, Arthur is keeping a lot of things a secret, but Alan feels like his avenue is quite clear. Make Disappear gets rid of that Inspired Overseer. Pretty much all Arthur wants at this point is to draw into that Tolarian Terror. Is stuck on lands as well. Spirited Companion for Alan as they're blitzing through their turns here. Impulse for Arthur, pretty sure he's going to take a land here. Unless there's a Tolarian Terror. No. Chose to take something else. I didn't quite catch what it was. Ooh, did draw the Tolarian Terror. So Tolarian Terror is already -4. We need one more spell to have it be castable. And that's going to be another Make Disappear. Easy decision. Yeah, Make Disappear, getting rid of the Sholdred. Alan not really losing it here. He has Phyrexian emissaries to bring that Sholdred back, don't forget. We have Tolarian Terror with extra mana now. But Arthur chooses to pass. Doesn't want to drop his defenses, so rather keeps counter mana up. As Alan passes the turn, he got what he wanted. And Arthur plays, not sure what that card is. Keep forgetting. Is it draw to discard 1? Search, thirst for discovery. Discard a basic land, yeah. So thirst for discovery. And that's the 1 mana Tolarian Terror for Arthur. Keeps 2 mana open, representing double terror. As Arthur has a shore up there for extra protection. But I don't think he has any more interaction for creatures. I do think Alan is aware of this. The players did get the deck lists a few days before the event. So knowing Alan, he might have actually studied the deck lists. He is that kind of guy. Tolarian Terror comes in, knocks him all the way down to 24. Not where you want to be as a tempo deck. And we have a Rite of Oblivion paying for the ward. We have 1 mana up. And Arthur gets to choose how he wants to play his permission. Shore Up is his choice of play. As he draws a Slip Through the Mist, so we have some more 1 mana interaction. There is at least 1 negate in that hand, and I can't really make out the rest. Alan chose not to attack with the flying creature. As he identified the that he might be losing the trade, but not blocking the race, but not blocking with it either here. So I'm not sure what the thinking process behind that was. Draws another Phyrexian Emissary and swings in. Another shore up could have been devastating here. The untap it bonus on those. Such a nice perk to have. Emissary with kicker. Missionary, not emissary. I keep saying emissary. Why didn't you guys correct me? Hey. So Essence Scatter on the missionary. That would have brought back a shoulder to hand, which would have been quite a formidable stop sign for now. Alan gets knocked down all the way down to 6, so it's 6-6. But Arthur has a lethal board and Alan does not. So can he add a bunch of chompers to the table? Looks like he can. He has at least one Elazilvek there. There's also a disfigure, which might skew combat math a bit, at least. Not really looking that relevant here, but looks like Alan has quite a few important decisions to make here. Comes in with the missionary, not the flyer, and plays Elazinvek. So the lifelink on the missionary was preferable to the safer attack. Arthur in the tank. His turn to piece together how he's going to get a lethal attack going, and it starts with an impulse. He needs to force either Alan into a position where he has no creatures, or into a position where he has maximum one attacker left when it's Alan's turn. A tough puzzle to crack for sure. He's looking at the bounce spell, Fading Hope there. He's really limited in the amount of mana that he has. It's a very indicative problem to these blue-based tempo decks is they can feel unbeatable, but as soon as they fall behind in mana and they can't react to everything that you do, it often falls apart a little bit. Looks like the Fading Hope is the choice for Impulse here, and Elazilvek is going to resolve. So we have negate, syncopate, Fading Hope, bounces the Elazilvek. I think we're resolving the scry on the Fading Hope, yes. And Arthur decides to leave it, draws it. It's a consider. Gets rid of land. Not sure what he's digging for, but he didn't get it, considering he drew another land, but he does have both negate and both negate and essence scatter up, and he has indeed reached the state where he wanted to be. Alan only has one attacker available to him. And he seems to be representing having something proactive here. See what Alan has. I haven't been able to really have a look at his hand beyond that this figure that's in front. The attack here will, so he has a right. The attack here will put him up to 5. So a chump block and a resolve this figure would be enough for him to survive. And Arthur seems to have left the table to ask a question, as Alan wants to cast Ila Silvek. This is after the attack. So missionary attacked, put Arthur down to 2 and Alan up to 5. Syncopate on the Ila Silvek for 3. Alan does get to pay for this, but will be left with just 1 mana. And chooses to scoop them up instead, because he'd only be able to block 1 and not have mana left anymore to interact with the other one. So we are going to game number 3 between these two players. And it looks like, I think Alan might have, let's go back a little bit. I want to make sure that we can see how many cards he has. 7 cards in hand for both players. Yes, so we're keeping all of our opening hands as we get into game number 3 of the semifinal between Alan on white-black reanimate midrange versus Arthur on mono-blue tempo. Ila Silvek is the first card of the game, non-land card, and he gets met with Fading Hope. Looks like Arthur really wants to have that scry effect already. Pushes the card he saw to the bottom and is choosing to be reactive rather than proactive. Has what looks like double Spell Pierce, Slip Through the Mist, Impulse, and something. Ila Silvek has returned, and we see the card that Arthur might be looking for, which is, yes, a Delver that he takes to put some pressure back on Alan. All Arthur really wants is to have one card that puts pressure and to be able to ignore everything that might be relevant to that card. Is the avenue these mono blue decks often take. This figure targeting the Delver that eats one of the Spell Pierces in Arthur's hand, and 4 mana gets him a Shouldered. Alan, knowing full well that 1 mana does not have any interaction with any of his creatures. Trigger for Arthur. Loses to life and flips his Delver. So we have Fading Hope to put it back in hand, and I do think that is a Ugly Essence Scatter there. Or is it a Thirst for Discovery? I can't keep those two apart. But he has a Make Disappear as well, so he can bounce and counter it on the way back in. Wants to see what's coming first, so it takes the 4 damage, until 4 extra damage. Ooh, and then Missionary here. Extra pressure for Alan, but loses on some of the rebuyability that could have gone to that Sholdred. As he flashes us a second Missionary in hand. So again, we're overloading Arthur's capability to act as much as Alan is. With those 3 lands, he's only casting 2 relevant spells. Ooh, and choosing not to interact at the end. Am I misunderstanding what? Or is there no Fading Hope in hand? That slipped through the mist. I thought he had a Fading Hope in hand as well, but apparently I'm mistaken, because that would have been cast 2 turns ago if that were the case. Yeah, there's no Fading Hope. There is no hope to fade. There is only death and destruction at the hands of Alan's Sholdred. As the teams come swinging in, Alan sensing blood in the water. Arthur has to block here. So chooses to block with the creature that would otherwise give Alan reach in the form of Illa Sylvex triggers. But that Sholdred is wrapping up things rather quickly as well, as all we need is a past turn for Arthur to succumb to the last trigger. And Alan just adds insult to injury by throwing Liliana on the table. Thirst for Discovery gets tossed on there as well. And Alan takes the first final slot. So we'll see in the next match who he will be up against. There we go, Sander de Rudder will have to face Aaron. That is the Grixis based deck versus Aaron's sacrifice based Urborg Repossession Colossal Sky Turtle deck. So stay tuned for the next match. It will be a doozy.